Like Ed's here with RunDiffusion. I just wanted to take you through one of our publicly available templates on our platform that is for architecture. Really, it's the title of this template workflow is called Massing and Form Exploration in Architecture. And how you would use this particular template, as I'm just dropping in here, is this template is really to transform massing models into visually expressive architectural concepts. And so you can take models from Revit or Rhino or Grasshopper and bring them into RunDiffusion and then ideate around materiality, maybe lighting, shadows, other things is early stage, if you're in the early stage, sort of taking initial forms and sort of exploring different shapes for an early stage concept of a building. This is or a structure for the built environment. This is a really, really great workflow to be able to kind of show you how that's done. So let me kind of take you through the workflow here, and the models that I've chosen are similar to some of the other templates that I've worked with, just because I have a preference for these tools. I really, really like these ones in particular. And so in this particular template, so if you go in here and you're wondering where this template is, in the RunDiffusion library on your homepage, you'll be able to see the template here and you can access that. And then you can create a board from this template as well. And all the settings for all these different tools and the examples will be populated in that board if you want to see how this was made and use it for your project. And so in the template itself, I actually have 4 or 5 different tools. And the tools that I have here, you can see I have Flux 2 Pro by Black Forest Labs. I really like this model because it just has a really nice aesthetic, very similar to Midjourney and some of the other really great image generation models out there from Black Forest Labs, and just really like the aesthetic and sort of the clean images that it can provide. And so I used it initially just to create some rapid iteration around mood boards, and you can kind of see how I've done that here, where I just used a straight prompt to be able to get these mood boards. It's interesting, it puts sort of these title tabs in here. I can't really tell what they're saying, but I just wanted to get an idea of a mood board that I could use some materials for this building concept that I'm kind of bringing into our platform. And I grabbed another one, so I just generated another image with the same prompt. Doing it here, you can see all the metadata as far as how big the image is and other things here. So when I have this tool activated, for those of you that are maybe a little bit newer to how board templates work in our platform, any of these tools you click on here, it's going to open up your drawer menu options here on the right hand side. So if I'm opening up Nano Banana Pro, it'll open up this drawer menu options. If I'm opening up Magnific Upscaler, it's going to select this. It'll open up this drawer menu options for Magnific for upscaling. Same thing for Veo. If I click on this, it's going to open up the drawer menu options for Veo. And so you kind of just move iteratively down through a workflow until you have kind of your finished project that you're looking for. And so again, I just use this initial Flux 2 Pro model to create a couple of different images for a mood board. This particular model is really great in that you can generate a prompt from an image if you want. You can put in a simple prompt here. It also acts as an editing model. So if you have a very simple prompt or if you have more of a conversational style prompt, like you can tell here where I had some just labels that were here for the AI generated, knowing kind of you might want to label your, it just inserted those into the generation that I created, and I wanted to remove those word labels from the image. And so you can see that's much more conversational in nature to be able to remove those images or those labels from my image. Whereas in the beginning, I have a much more structured prompt, but it can do both. So you can edit images with just conversational style prompts, or you can generate really nice images with this model as well. The other things that it has as far as optionality is you have your different aspect ratios here, and then also your resolution sizes up to 2K with this particular model. It happens to have 4K in square. I'm not exactly sure why it doesn't have 4K for the other ones, but it does have 4K for square images in Flux 2 Pro. And then you can also have up to 9 reference images. So if you want to add a bunch of different reference images in addition to your prompt to be able to generate something new, so sort of kind of like a mashup of different influences plus a prompt, you can do that. I'm just showing you dragging them over from my library. I can grab them from my library. So I have hundreds of images in my asset library. I could grab them from here by clicking library, or I can actually upload images too. So if you have a bunch of images you want to upload, you could use those for influence as well. Um, Moving on, what I really did in here is I kind of started with, I didn't have an actual project out of Grasshopper or Revit or Rhino. And so actually AI generated something that would look like that to give you an idea of what that could look like if you uploaded something from any of those software platforms into our AI generation platform to be able to make changes to those images. So what I wanted to do with this is I had a 9 by 16 image, so something that was really tall, and I just wanted to be able to make that a square so I could see it without having to scroll up and down. And so you can see here's my square image. I didn't want to change anything about the image. I just wanted to have it in a square. And so that's all I did with this. And you'll see how I use the images up here for the mood board here shortly. But I also just what I wanted to do with this image as well is I wanted to create a white card render from it. And so you can see here, I just changed the image to a white card render so I can kind of see a little bit different look of what that would look like with a white card mass. And then I was bringing this in to be able to, again, this is really cool with Nano Banana Pro. You can actually AI generate something that looks like it's coming from Rhino 3D. This is actually AI generated because I just wanted to give you an idea of if you were to upload a model from Rhino, you could do that as well. You could upload an image from Rhino and then translate that into something new, which you'll see here in a second. And so with this, I actually AI generated this, and I had the AI then remove the software border and just give you the image, which is pretty incredible. It can make it look a lot like Rhino 3D. And then I did the same thing with Grasshopper. And so those of you that are familiar with Grasshopper, I had it actually create a Grasshopper image, and then I would remove that. So again, I generated these just to give you an idea of those are things you could upload into our software. So if you had a base image, you could do that, and then you can create, white card renders from it, which I've kind of done here. So if you had a Grasshopper style image or a CAD drawing and you wanted to convert that to a white card mass or render, you could do that with just a simple prompt here. So I upload this image, and then I can prompt it to be able to look like something like this. And then maybe you want to do material changes, see different lighting effects and whatnot on a building for this massed area, this early concept building that you're looking at. And so I can go ahead and take my white card render and then, or my Grasshopper image, either one. And then I can actually make prompts to show this white card render in the middle of a busy city block shopping area so as to give me an idea of how it could fit in that space. And so you can see that it does that really well. The other thing you could do is, I didn't have an example of this, but if you had an existing image of a city block and you want to kind of place that building in there, there was ways to do that as well in that particular space. If you had an existing city block specifically that you're wanting to upload an image and then sort of drop something in there, that could work really, really well. Also, just conveying the idea of how this could work. Then I wanted to see some different like shadowing and lighting effect. And so give me a high angle. I actually wanted to have more of an aerial photograph. It just gave me the same sort of aspect ratio and perspective, but it did give me some shadowing that was kind of nice, that I wanted to see just how different lighting sort of played off the materiality on the building. I'll show you here in a second, just a better prompt to be able to get that aerial view that I'm looking for. And so this is another example, actually. So sometimes you have to prompt a little bit to get it to make those changes. I tried a few different prompts here that you can see in this example, where actually this is the same example that I had. So this is where I went from a white card render to this building. And the next one, I was trying to get an aerial view. That prompt didn't quite work, but I still liked it because, and I wanted to show you this because it kind of changed the shadowing and the lighting effect. And so I could kind of see how that plays off the different stone and metal facade here elements. And then a better prompt to actually get an aerial view would just be, give me a top-down view of the building and the surrounding structures. And you can see that that did this much better, where it kind of gave me that top-down view of the building. And then what I did is I wanted to see kind of what it would look like, in the evening. So I had it prompted for an evening shot, which you can kind of see here. I wanted to see what it would look like sort of on an early, misty, foggy morning, how that would look like with the different materiality that we have on the outside of the building, what the look and feel would be. Pretty cool. And then the other thing I wanted to do, this is really neat in our platform, where you can actually upload an image and then you can make annotations to it. And so I wanted to see an up close image of sort of this entryway of the building. And so in my in our product, you can actually annotate, put annotations, text, arrows, squares. You can write on the images, and Nano Banana Pro and some of the other editing tools have a large language model layer that it can interpret what's inside of an image really, really well. So it can actually understand text. You can even sometimes prompt something as simple as follow the instructions that are in my image, and it will actually do that pretty well in a lot of cases. And so in this regard, I just want to see kind of a close-up. In this example, a close-up of this entry of the building. And so I've outlined this in red, and I'll show you here how to do that shortly. And so when I did that, it gave me this. And so I'm basically seeing down into this area of the building. And you can see there where it's a lot closer to some of the materials in the entryway. So I can get a little bit better idea. And then you can actually combine images. And this is where I use my mood board. So you can see here, here's my mood board. And this is really, really cool where you can actually edit multiple images and reference them in our product. And so I'm saying take the bronze material outlined here in the green box. So I outlined this in green and from our reference image and place it in the area of the building of the building image that is highlighted in red. Change nothing else about the building image. So I wanted to take this sort of bronze material and put it on the front entryway of our building. And you can see that I've kind of done that here. An easier way to tell would actually be if I compared the original building. So here's my original, and I've kind of outlined this in red, and it's taking this bronze look that we outlined in green, and it's putting that on the front of the building. And an easier way to kind of compare that would be, so here's my building before I actually made that bronze change. And when I wanted to apply that sort of bronze look, you can kind of see that it applied that here using those reference images. So that's how you can combine multiple images. You can use up to 14 reference images in Nano Banana Pro and apply different materiality to it. And you can see here, here's kind of an exaggerated example, much more broad strokes. And so I'm saying take the mood board, colors, materials. I wasn't really specific, didn't have any annotations or masking that I did in this image, and basically put all of my mood board elements in a building. This is probably not something you would obviously do. It is kind of cool, the materiality that they had here. I kind of think that's really cool. There's this kind of interesting wood cladding sort of material it has here, and sort of this pebbled rock or just colored rock that it has here as well. But what it did is it basically took different elements that I had here. So like this and this, got some elements here, and it applied them to my building, which you can see here. And you can see the whole thing when I compare it with the original building. So here's my original building, and now here's with all the sort of mood board elements applied with the stone, rock here, and different elements. And again, I wasn't really specific about where I wanted those elements to go, and this is just an exaggerated example where you could use multiple reference images to check materiality if you were doing sort of that early mass and form exploration for what you might want in your built environment. Going to the only other things I did in Nano Banana Pro is I just wanted to create some videos, and so I just changed the aspect ratio of this. So I went from a square to a 16 by 9. And then same thing with this. I didn't want to change anything with the image, so I said change nothing, but I use this reference image as the square, but I wanted it to be a 16 by 9. So you can see now it's a 16 by 9. And the same thing with this one here, where I'm not wanting to change anything. It's just taking that original image and making it a 16 by 9 as well. The one thing that I would have preferred to see in this well, what I did on this one, actually, it wasn't that I was changing it to a 16 by 9. I actually wanted to change it to early morning light, which I did a pretty good job of that. But the lighting in the inside of the building didn't really change. And I probably could have been more specific in my prompt to have it give me a different image that didn't have exactly the same sort of lighting patterns inside the building, which you can kind of see here with this this building here, where it's a foggy, misty morning and a lot of lights are off kind of midday. But nonetheless, you can kind of see the example of how this would work. Then, if you want to actually upscale your images, I think that Magnifique does a really good job of adding generative detail. So it'll both upscale images and it'll add generative detail to add additional elements around textures or shadows. And I think it does a really fine job with it. And so you could take any of your images here or here, And when I have this tool activated, I can just drag those images over here and then choose my upscale factor, up to 10,000 by 10,000. You can do huge images if you want, all the way down to just 2x. And then you can change these. Usually what I'll change is I'll boost up the creativity just a bit and the practicality just a bit, usually between 0 and 3. I usually leave HDR resemblance kind of neutral. The only thing I really wanted to do is some slight creative enhancement where I'm maybe adding a little bit more textural detail to elements on the outside of the building, or maybe some shadows. And so you can kind of see here with the upscales that I have, I'll show you some examples of that. So maybe starting with this one. So here's my pre-upscale. And here's my post upscale. So you can see the person here, definitely a little bit better, cleaner. The car detail, they're not as blurred certainly, so a little bit different look. But the reflections, the water, much, much better. What you see here as far as detail on the brick, you see that a lot better as well. There's like a plant now that kind of appeared in the window here. Better detail in the plants here as well. So that's what Magnifique will do, is add additional textural detail, add additional lighting, shadow detail that sometimes you can't get with just regular Nano Banana alone. So this is sort of the foggy, misty morning, sort of put a cloud up here covering this building. But I really like, actually, it brought a little bit more clarity to our building, but still gave me that sort of fog look as well. So that's kind of how Magnifique works. I upscaled a bunch of different buildings to be able to do that. And then I pulled those images down into a video model from Google called Veo 3. And Veo 3.1 is actually a really great model that allows you to do first frame and last frame. So you have frame interpolation where you can, let's say we wanted to have somebody kind of, have a first person perspective of somebody walking through a building. You could have them walking towards the building, maybe turning and then going into another room. This works really well for that because you could start with a certain frame of them walking kind of into a space, and then you could have them ending a frame where they kind of are turning. So it's not going to hallucinate because you're setting the start frame and the end frame of the video. So it does a really good job of stitching those together. And this works really, really well for sort of light studies or time lapses where you're kind of wanting to see different lighting effect as you're maybe in that exploration phase of different materiality and want to see how kind of light might play off of it. And really great to be able to show clients, to be able to kind of give them an idea of what something could look like. And so in this example, I used my early morning light and my evening light aspect ratios here, images, to be able to do just a quick time lapse. And you can see here's one example. Morning to evening. What you'll notice here, there's these buildings that kind of come out of thin air here in the video, and that's because my start frame and my end frame weren't quite the same image. And I'll show you another example where they are. This is the building and the subject in question, so that's really what I'm wanting to look for. And I actually like this one better because it has sort of that early morning shadows and then kind of morphs into evening light, and I can see sort of lighting effect a little bit better in this example, albeit that my first frame is not exactly the same image as my last frame. And this is a better example where I do have the same image, so there's no changing or sort of morphing of buildings sort of in the background. But you can see this as well, but this is the one that had sort of that consistent lighting from morning to evening inside the building. And I can see some changes here, but I actually prefer the earlier time-lapse video because it showed more lighting changes throughout the video. And moving on, the other video model that I really, really like is CDance 1.5 Pro. This is a great model in where it just has some really cool special effects that you can do. You can do this with Veo 3.1 as well. I just happen to like the way CDance does it. It will do sort of transformations, it understands drawings really well, where if you're wanting to manipulate or rotate drawings in sort of 3D spatial, like 3D spatially, take a drawing and sort of rotate it in 3D space. It does a really good job with some of those things. And so in this example, I just took my initial, mass render here, and then I have my final render here, and my prompt is very, very simple, and a photorealistic render of a building drops into place to replace the initial CAD drawing of the building. And you can kind of see the effect here where it's sort of coming down, twists, then sort of just lands in the space where I want it to actually be. Kind of cool. And then here's another example. This one's a CAD drawing of a building slowly morphs into a realistic photo. This one actually sort of takes you inside the building, the CAD drawing to the final rendered building on the other side, which is kind of neat. And again, this one has the same first frame, last frame, but just a different effect. A CAD drawing transforms into a photorealistic render. And this one kind of fades into the background and then goes to full image where you can see the full render here. So this, again, this is a great example of a bunch of different tools. These are some of the ones that I commonly like, but this use case example would be sort of for massing early form exploration, where you can rapidly ideate around a lot of different ideas for different models you might be able to import from other software like CAD drawings from Revit or Rhino. If you're earlier in the process, Rhino, or even if you're even earlier than this stage and you want to kind of just do just different shapes and get a bunch of different ideas and then basically put materiality on those shapes, you can do that with this same type of prompt structure and tool flow in this as well. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, feel free to hit up our team. Have a great day. Thanks so much.